All right, everybody, welcome back to another week of the Marketplace Mavericks, where three over the hill guys talk about their experience on Amazon. And today we got a special guest. We got Ian MacIntyre. Ian is living out there in Oregon. Is it Ian? Yeah, Ian is
Yep.
out there in Oregon. We met him through our online group, and Ian's been at it for 2 years, Ian?
A little over 2 years.
Yeah, he's been at it for about 2 years. We kind of brought Ian on today. We had Tony a couple weeks ago, and Tony really got into the weeds with us about credit cards and flipping money and leakage and all those technical things that are super, super important with Amazon. And then there's the other part of Amazon that is the mentality of it and the perseverance, overcoming obstacles, and all that stuff. And Ian is doing something that a lot of Amazon sellers do, but I have no clue how they do it. Ian is a six-figure per month guy with OA, and he has the ability to three times that if he wants to. So to start off, Ian, we want to hear like a little bit about your story. What brought you to Amazon? If you want, what you did a little bit before Amazon, and kind of tell us how us Amazon people are really just entrepreneurs.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I've been doing Amazon for about 2 years. I had a little stint of it in 2017. It was just a different landscape. Didn't quite click with it. But what happened is 25 years ago, I was a martial arts instructor. I threw parties. I was a very active person, and I got injured very badly. And so for the last, 20 years after that, it was about trying to identify injuries. And at each stage, I got a little better. I had an entrepreneurial spirit and couldn't really work. So I threw myself into some business. Some things worked out, other things cratered epically. Really tough to make something work when you're sort of on borrowed time all the time. And so I learned the positive lessons of the way things can work and what potential is. I learned a lot of the negative lessons of, what taking hard hits looks like in business and what actual risk management is. So by the time Amazon came along, my health had been improving enough to start doing some stuff, but I still couldn't really like go get a job or do something too strenuous. And the great thing about using Amazon FBA network is that I was able to order a ton of product, send it in, and I could have a bad couple weeks, but I'm still getting sales. So it allowed me to juggle a tricky health situation and still begin to launch something and solidify something that is I'm seeing as a stepping stone for other business opportunities in the future as well.
Awesome, awesome.
I'm curious, Ian. A lot of really new Amazon sellers, they struggle with fear. The fear of losing money, making mistakes, just kind of looking foolish, not really knowing what to do. So what advice would you give to those to sort of help them move past those things that they're afraid of when they first get started, jumping into the Amazon selling world?
I'd say give yourself enough space to do all of the things you just said because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to lose money on some product. You're going to learn the hard way. And that's all normal. We all do it. So if you're counting every penny because you can't part with it, try and get a little bit more capital to be able to do it. But understand that's going to happen. Beyond that, the way to minimize those sorts of things is try to talk to other sellers. There's tons of people. If you don't know anybody, there's tons of people posting on social media. How do you know it's true or not? That is just like any product you're looking at. It takes time. It takes getting involved. It takes asking questions. Lots of people in the space are happy to help, happy to have that conversation, and you can accelerate your learning curve much faster.
Yeah, you really can. And helping other people, that's a big reason why Blake, Pete, and I started this podcast. And why I use school. I think you had mentioned it when we were talking earlier today. Uh, I probably get on one Zoom call a week with somebody new in school. I probably talked to two or three different people who are within the first 30 days. That's where my expertise is, being in it for 5, 6 months. Now, me, I'm in it 5 or 6 months, absolutely full time, really long hours, and have really dove into it. So, I always tell people, I said, listen, my expertise is like probably to help you with your first 90 days. After that,
Mhm.
you're we can collaborate together. But, I really understand because it's so fresh how frustrating not getting, trying to get ungated is. How to find stuff, how to, your gift cards keep on getting canceled and you got to call the gift card companies and all that, those headaches, which in the very beginning really just makes you want to quit.
Right.
The feeling of wanting to quit 6 months in, a year in, when you start making some money, it goes down a little bit. You can take some bumps, but in the very beginning, it's just flat out frustrating. And
Is there
being
anything that
able
you
to
did,
have that
Ian?
source.
I've
I'm sorry,
almost
John.
quit 3 times, just
Yeah.
flat
Three
out.
times.
Yeah. And so I have like I think of quitting in a couple of ways. So off the bat, some things just aren't for somebody. And so it's like, am I really unhappy doing this? Is this not my thing? If you would rather be making YouTube videos and you're trying to become an auto mechanic, maybe that's you've wrapped your knuckles a few too many times and you're like, this just isn't my thing. Fair. So I checked in, is this not my thing? No, it's manageable. Okay, then the second one is, if I quit, did I put in enough effort to really justify saying I put into it what could have succeeded?
Mhm.
Well, no. So, okay, let me double down. What does that mean? It means putting in more time, because in the beginning, I was at best part-time. Like, it wasn't like you're doing, John, throwing in full time all the way behind it. I had health issues. I was just sort of figuring it out. And spending money was hard. Analyzing a product took 20 minutes for me to figure out. And then finally, I'm like, all right, I'm ready to buy this. I go click buy and it's sold out now because I took so long to think. And it's that frustration was there, but it became, okay, let me look at twice as many products. Let me create some low spending goals. And spending goals are, if you don't hit them, it's not a big deal. If you hit it easily in the day, keep going. But at least I'm trying to attribute something tangible. It's just it's every day, what am I doing? It becomes, okay, I've been spending $200 a day. That's starting to add up. And one of the other big things is, especially with FBA, it's going to take you 2 to 3 months for the life cycle to happen. Between ordering the product, it arrives to you or your prep center, it goes into Amazon, it pings around all of the fulfillment centers, it
Yeah.
sells, then you get the money, that the money gets put into your account, you still have to wait for it, and then you receive it back and you repeat the cycle. So I've noticed each time I go to spend more money, month 1 you're like, I'm spending a bunch. Month 2 you're like, I'm spending a bunch more. And then month 3 hits and you're like, I haven't seen any of this money back. Not really. Like, what's going
Not really,
on?
no.
You start to feel stressful.
Yep.
And then a couple times I take my foot off the gas. I'm like, I got to see this play out. And it goes overwhelmingly successful. It plays out the way I think it will. And then it's like, oh, right, now I'm playing catch up again. So now as I do that, I have a little bit more faith. And part of this is stacking wins. It's stacking knowledge.
Yes.
If I told you in, 24 months, you can have this success. People go to school all the time. There's no guarantee when they enter school that in 2 years they're coming out with a job.
So true.
Most businesses do not have that success. Most of the Instagram businesses, things you see, occasionally people, great for them, but like most businesses, you're like 5 years in, check out our success. We're having a relaunch party. Like, good for them. In this space, in 12 months, you can learn a very valuable skill and start to turn it into something that can become that much more. And so it's, I think, sometimes managing the time scale expectation. This happens faster than most things, but also we live in a very instant world and you want to see it right away and you want to see that feedback. And especially, here's the double-edged sword, right? You start going on social media, getting tips, but then you see everybody posting how well they're doing and all the things.
Right.
So, the classic phrase is orange bars because that's what it looks like on the Seller Central app. But what you don't know is their profit margin. There are people that could be selling 4 times as much as me, but if you're losing money on 2/3 of your products, I'm making more money than them.
Yes.
And so it's that trick of trying to find knowledge without getting too caught up in the hype. Because at the end of the day, it's still a business. It's a platform we don't own, which offers its own risks. But it's also a platform that has put so much money into development and branding and logistics that we don't have to do a lot of these things as well. So there's trade-offs, but the upside is really good.
Yeah.
It is. And that's what I have owning businesses my whole life. Yes, it is capital intensive, but it's capital. I always go back to, hey, I almost opened a gym. I was going to open a gym. I looked for a place. I found a place. I was going to actually buy out another CrossFit gym. So I had this, put it all together. I was going to spend $100,000 before I opened the doors and cross my fingers. and hope people walk in. And with Amazon, 200, maybe $150 in subscription services and your investment of your time and your inventory. That's it. And your inventory, yes, you could spend 100 grand, but get like, unless you're just completely oblivious on how to buy anything, you're going to get that back.
And let's say, for example, right, you have that 100 grand and you're going to spend something like 40K a month, which will get you into the full rotation. 40K one month, 40K the next month, you're putting in 20K, money's coming back, you're in a full rotation. You're going to make that money back. If you had borrowed all of it, for example, you're going to make all that money back in year one. Now,
Right.
that doesn't mean if you're just starting out, don't run in those kind of numbers, because you want to know what you're doing. But at the same time, that gym, hopefully you make it back in a year, but realistically,
No.
most brick and mortars aren't doing anything like that. Now,
No.
brick and mortar, you do have depreciation, you have the ability to sell it, sure. But this can cash flow you into going and buying another business and supporting you while you get that off the ground if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, the whole reason why I ended up not making the decision to go ahead with that is because I sat down with my accountant and the payback for it was years. And it just, yeah, it just
That's
wasn't
great on you that
making
you
sense.
actually
I'm like,
did
no,
that.
yeah, I want the money now. Like it was just too long. It didn't make sense. I was like, I need to do something that I can scale. I have money to invest, but I need to scale it. I need to scale it now. And Amazon, it's not easy. And if it was easy, everyone would do it. But it is, if you put the time into it and you keep on seeing it through, and you're going to have to take chances like any other business. It's always going to, but it's there, and lots of people are doing it, but not as many people are doing it as successfully as you think they are. And that's where it goes to the point of, when you see the orange bars all over X and all over Instagram, don't just think they're doing great,
But
because you
I'm
don't know the
curious, how,
process.
how do you handle the comparison game when that does happen and you see all these people posting all over the place? I have, millions in revenue, but what they're not showing you is behind the curtain, what their profit looks like. And so how do you mentally sort of get that out of your head and just sort of like try to block that and continue moving forward?
I like to look at a lot of different business models within the space because there are so many ways to do it.
Yeah.
Wholesale, OA, people sell discontinued items, people sell categories that other can't access. I mean, there's just so many ways to do it. Sometimes I'm seeing people that have incredible success. There's a gentleman named Soros. His team does 6 million a year. He maybe puts in an hour a month.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He spent a lot of time to build that up. But if you look at
Yeah.
his story, he came out the gate and did like $10 million.
Yeah.
Had an
Sometimes you
incredible
just catch
mentor.
fire.
But here's the thing. What few people know is he lost money in the beginning because he wasn't aware of the return rates of some of the things. He wasn't dealing with some of the back end leakage. And because when you're trying to spend that much, especially at an accelerated rate, you start compromising on your ROI.
Yes.
And so it took him about a year to right the ship. And now his team is crushing it because they came out, they saw what success looked like, they felt what failure was, and they've course corrected. But that's the thing, is when you start seeing people that are open about saying, yeah, my bars were great, I lost money. There's a company called PharmaPacks that recently went bankrupt. They were in the top 10 of Amazon sellers. We're talking like $100 million a year in sales. They went
Oh, wow.
bankrupt. A big thing of them was supplements. Well, tons and tons of them were expiring. Like it's as the business scales, it can get unwieldy. And so there's plenty of times where you see people that the numbers are the most incredible looking, they still fail. So I try to keep that in mind. And it's all about knowledge. The other thing too is I've talked to so many sellers, much bigger than me, that have given me great tips. People that have just started that have given me great tips.
Yep.
They're just like, hey, here's this thing. Oh, wait, many did you order that? Oh, I ordered 70. What? How? Oh, well, I just went back through and I looped carts this big. For 20 minutes, I got the cards over here. And I'm like, thank you. You just gave me a great tip. So I've seen it from the newest sellers, the most experienced sellers. Everybody's got something to discuss, whether I'm helping somebody or somebody's dropping a tip on me. And so that really helps to start to see the perspective. I also, over time, created my own money goals. And it became, okay, I started tracking on a monthly basis how much I was spending, how many units I was buying, how much I sold in revenue, and how many units I sold. And over enough months, I started to see a pretty consistent pattern. If my spend was X, My sales were generally Y, and there was a range that based on how profitable the products I had, one month it would be incredible, 40% ROI on everything because that was all my good inventory. Then the next month, it's considerably
Yeah.
lower because I'm just moving other stuff.
Yeah.
But I start to see that pattern and went, okay, what I really need to do is spend, for me, it was $30,000 to hit about 55,000. That's
Yep.
where, because I had a ton of debt, I was kind of struggling with all of this. For me to actually start taking money out of the business, pay things down, to manage things, I needed to hit these metrics. And it still took a while to hit them, but I knew what I was aiming for. And that kind of calms the nerves on whatever anybody else is doing. I know I'm putting money away. I know I'm hitting my targets. Now, how do I increase this? How do I improve it? And I'm looking for people that, like, if they have a better handle on their business, or they're like, where's their little edge that I might be able to incorporate that works with my style of doing things.
Yeah, it's so funny that you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I'm going through now. Being so new in the business, I'm kind of in my, I think I my first sales were February, towards the end of February. Really started, I started, I know exactly when I started, January 22nd, but I really started putting my first orders in February, selling in February, and now I've had a big spike in my sales, but I am selling my liquidated inventory. So as soon as I kind of like got things going in like March, and I was like, okay, I need to start spending 3,000 a week or 2,500, started putting goals in, and like the sourcing was, I wouldn't say becoming easy, but starting to get it. But I wasn't very good at reading Keepa charts, and I really wanted to like get sales. So I started buying some wrong things. Now, even those wrong things, some of them I'm losing money on, but I'm doing okay. But my sales have gone on, but really, there's a whole bunch of inventory that I didn't really pay attention to that is all in liquidation mode. And now that I'm moving into wholesale, I've kind of gone into my repricer and started going through everything and repricing it myself and saying, okay, it's time for the, like, you look at some pairs of socks that you bought and you're like, and you go back and you look, you go, oh God, I bought those in March. Like, they still have 15 in stock. I haven't sold one of these in a month. Like, it's time for it to go. And yeah, all of a sudden my orange bars started looking good. And there was some stuff that was selling well in there, but I started looking and I was like, yeah, these orange bars are cool and I'm recouping capital, which I love. And it's not really defeating to me because I'm like, this is all stuff that I was buying in the very beginning. And I made a bunch of poor choices. But I'm losing some money, but I'm still recouping my capital. So for me, it's still a win because I learned from it.
That non-attachment is really helpful.
Yeah.
I would, and this might sound counter to a lot of people, I would rather lose money quickly.
Yeah.
Because if I'm going to lose it quick, I already know I'm not getting this back anytime soon. Let me lose it quick, recomp it, and redeploy it again. So if I have to wait 2 months to sell the thing at a $2 profit, or I can get the money back now, redeploy it, and make a $4 profit,
Yeah.
I would rather do that and move on from it.
Yeah. And Pete, it's changed me how I buy things because now it's not so much profit, it's velocity. Give me that, and I've learned that more from getting into wholesale where velocity is king. Because if all of a sudden, if it doesn't have velocity, you can't get rid of it.
Yeah,
If it
I
at
think
least
Tony
has,
mentioned that a lot as well when he
yeah,
spoke to us about that.
at least if it has velocity, you know, hey, if I drop my price, I can get my capital back. If it doesn't have the velocity, then there's nowhere to go. I think moving into wholesale for me so quickly, I kind of learned it that way because I learned, oh, if it doesn't have velocity, you can't even look at it.
Well, and there's different times of year. So back to school, Q4, these are times of year where you can get rid of that low velocity. Something's been lingering around, you can't get rid of it. I use those events to dump all of my dead inventory, and anything you take a loss on then, you don't really notice it because you're more profitable on what you're selling. So it just kind of, just kind of smooths the whole thing over.
Yeah. No, it's definitely, it's just part of the learning curve. And sometimes I feel like I've been doing this forever. And I'm like, I'm 6 months in, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not 6 months in. Like, I'm like 5 months in.
Well, and I still have those buys where I go to reprice it. I'm like, wait, what did I pay for this thing? And then I look and I'm like, why on earth did I buy that? What was I, did I really look at this product? It still happens. It's always going to happen. It's just part of the game, but it's more winning bets than losing bets again and again.
Yeah. It's not gambling. It's not. It's reading data. It's doing it quickly. But yeah, like I bet I could go back and look at. I bet some stuff I bought on Thursdays and Fridays because I was behind in my goal to source. And in my head, I was like, I got to hit my 3 grand this week. I got to hit my 3 grand this week. And well, I probably didn't need to.
And then, like with goals, you do that. Okay, you hit the goal. Now it's time to modify the goal. Okay, I'm aiming to spend 3 grand in these parameters. And if
Yeah.
you don't, you put in a couple extra hours. Even if you don't hit it, that's okay. As long as it spurs you to more action as opposed to less action. If the goal gets you to be paralyzed and not want to do it, it's a bad goal. If the goal is there to just get you to make that little extra push, put in that extra hour here and there, or that extra half hour a day, like, because all of this compounds. There is nothing like looking at 1,000 keepas, except looking at 2,000 keepas.
Yeah.
The more you look at them, then you start to see how your items perform, and you start to notice patterns within Keepa. Not everything's accurate. Keepa doesn't record everything accurately, but it gives us a really good window, and you start to see certain setups, and you're like, every time I see this, it's not so good for me. I get on something that has 5 people. By the time it lands, it has 30 people. I am the first one repricing out the door. By the time all your units are available and you've checked, I'm out. I've sold my units. Bye, have fun. I'll check back in a month.
Yeah.
So it's those sorts of patterns where you start to go, oh, wait, I'm noticing the offer count's kind of dropping in this cyclical fashion. Maybe I can jump in right here and ride the wave up. So yeah, it's the more you see, nothing replaces it. But also you can speed up the knowledge. Working with other people, communicating with people, doing it alone is so much more difficult. I never would have lasted alone.
No, neither would I.
Because there are times where I've gotten on and I've made friends doing this, and then it's just getting on every day that keeps me doing it. And they drop a lead for me, and it's like, well, now I feel a little obligated to find a good lead for them. And it just keeps pushing. So that's been a major component, is working with other people.
Yeah, I found that, and that's Pete. That's how Pete and I met each other. And I just I know how frustrating it is. That's why anytime somebody messages me and asks for advice, I always am going to just take that 10 minutes and talk them through it.
Ian, would you say that you manage your inventory based on maybe one of the criteria would be based on the number of offers that are being made on that particular product to sort of in other words, sort of help you plan out how soon you want to be out of the product? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Offer count's probably one of my biggest metrics, because you get to see, various numbers are or are not accurate, whether it's like a calculator like Seller Amp or Rev Seller, or, I do like when Amazon actually says how many units, but even then, there's sometimes where I look at it and go, I don't believe you. But looking at that offer count, looking at it going up and down, seeing what's happening, really helps me decide velocity, to see what's going on. If I start to see a mass swelling of people, I know to get out the door. Obviously, if people start falling off, maybe I'll back off and raise my price a little bit. But yeah, it's really in relation to what other people are doing. And then otherwise, you're just test buying. And some things, especially OA, it's fine if it's super slow, if the ROI is there and you want to get a couple units. But yeah, wholesale, you have to hit an MOQ, then yeah, you just want that velocity. But yeah, that's one of the big tells, is to see who's selling through. And of course, offer count can go down if they have 1 unit or they sold out of their 100th unit. But at the same time, it just gives you that motion. Is this moving up and down, or are there 8 people and this hasn't really gone down in 6 months?
It's pretty interesting, because back when I started back in January with John, one of the first items that I purchased to sell were a 6-pack of socks, Champion socks, and the offer count on there, I think, was maybe 12 or 13 at the time. And by the time 2 or 3 weeks rolled around, there was literally 70 people on that same pair of socks, and I was taken aback by the number of people that I was competing with. And so we quickly got out of that. So I felt like that was what you're saying is positive reinforcement as to how I sort of played that out.
Yeah, you start to see, if you start getting into the weeds of it, sometimes I see something like that, I just instantly think lead list that had 30 members. Oh, that hit a lead list and it completely blew up. Sometimes you start to recognize a couple of the same sellers on similar types of products, and you're like, oh, this increased by 4 people. Oh, it's the same people. You're fine. I see who I'm competing against. And you start to, those are the inner workings over time. And that's the beauty. There's so many layers of information. You can do quite successful without knowing most of it. But the deeper you go, the more you understand, the more you can compare it to other things, the more opportunity you start to find within it.
Yeah. our online group could be involved in tanking some prices in certain times.
Look, everybody setting the price the same is called price fixing. It's really bad. You can get banned for it. But I am not above texting a friend and saying, "Bro, raise your price." Um, you're
Yeah,
tanking us
yeah,
here. But yeah, it's just one of those things, and having that like that's how I've succeeded so well with OA because spending a lot of money is kind of tough. Or some
yep,
people get that one product or that one niche and that works for a bit. I know people that sell one type of product and they're doing 100K a month, but they're also panicked at any moment a gating issue changes,
oh,
something shifts.
yeah, the
All
night.
of their inventory is in one brand and one style.
Do you have a niche?
I haven't. My niche is profitable.
Okay, that's my niche.
Whatever makes sense. There's a lot of things I avoid. I avoid glass unless the ROI is there. Oh, it's a 60% ROI. Maybe I deal with glass today. So
Yep.
it's modifiers based on what's happening. And there's some products I absolutely hate dealing with, and I just won't if I don't have to. But for the most part, it's like I'll never touch that brand again. I'm sorry, 120% ROI because it's on sale. I will totally buy from that brand again. So
Yeah,
it just depends. There's nothing wrong with picking a niche and diving deep into it. And it can be really helpful for knowing what sales and gift cards and all of that stuff. But like, that's the other beauty of working with other people. People start introducing things and you're like, I've never done automotive before.
Mhm.
What
hmm
is this? Like, I'm only done clothing. What's this grocery thing? Oh, you do toys. And it starts to expand your understanding in ways that you start to spot more things in more places. And then some things are like really easy to FBM or they're beauty, which isn't what it used to be. They've made beauty a lot harder, but
Yep.
tons of small products. If you happen to get them,
Yep.
it's like 100 products is fits in a box in your hand, and it's like what 4 pounds or something. It's super nice. So it just depends.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so many factors you're gonna find in wholesale, or at least what I've found is making sure things are in stock because it's not like OA where hey, if you can add it to the cart, it's coming, and you never think about shipping in OA. It's always free shipping. You're always buying enough
we
stuff. Usually, at least I'm going off the small amount that I did. It's usually
Yeah.
always free shipping. And in wholesale, especially when you're putting in test orders and starting out, shipping's an issue.
Yeah. Yeah. In fact, you most likely want a couple of prep centers because you
Yeah.
do not want to be shipping from the East Coast to the West Coast on your
No.
order when you could send it into an East Coast prep center that's going to then send it to East Coast Amazon.
Right.
So,
I
yeah.
I I just had to prep 600 things in grocery Friday night because I found a good grocery distributor, but I was buying stuff that was in liquid that it was small. It was only like 6-ounce bottles, but it was glass. And it was in order for me to send it to my prep center, it was way too expensive unless I bought a pallet. And I was not for one of my first wholesale orders, I was not buying a pallet. So I was like, okay, I drove 90 minutes away from me and went and picked it up and prepped it myself, which is fine, but like I didn't realize. And like the shipping with margins being so small on grocery, it wasn't possible. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have been able to buy it.
And you start to see where those margins are, right? And so like I've had plenty of products and occasionally you do pay for shipping, you factor it in, all of a sudden before
Yeah.
you know it, you're like, oh, I wasn't profitable on that the way I thought I was. Okay, so if I do this again, I need it to be this much cheaper. So if I find it at that rate, perfect. And if I don't, okay, lesson learned, and just keep
Yep.
moving on. And that's the thing is the wins can come fast, the losses can come fast. It's just about keeping going because
Yeah.
every piece of data, whether it's a keep a graph or it's a previous sale or it's a learning what works for you or it's a recovering money from a reimbursement, like each piece gains this knowledge base.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it. And then you either leverage other people you know for knowledge or you start to hire some people to expand what you're doing. And before you know it, you can start to hit some decent numbers.
Yeah, you really can. And I think that's a good point is knowing what you like to do and what you outsource and what you don't. Like I'm finding that I like to create my own wholesale call lists. That's what I'm in the middle of right now. I had my VA start to do it and I didn't like how he was doing it. I tried to retrain, and he's good VA. He's really more of an admin guy, but it was good. But like, I like going down the rabbit hole because I'm starting to learn what a good wholesale. I'm starting to get that thing when, like, as soon as I see it on Amazon and I look at the brand's website, I'm like, ooh, there's a lead. Like, that's a lead. That's what I need to get on the phone with. And I like having that. And the stuff I was getting from him really wasn't his fault. He just wasn't thinking like I was. I'm like, okay, I had to switch it around. And it was like, okay, I'm going to have you source the price sheets when I get them. And I want you to go through that. So it's finding what you kind of like to do, because a lot of it is monotonous, and going over it again, find out what you're good at, what you like to do. Like, I'm horrible at Excel. I do not like it. My brain does not work that way. We got Pete here as Mr. Analytical. I don't work that way. I don't like Excel. I don't want to learn it beyond what I have to learn. So I have my VA make me this sheet, make me this sheet, make this sheet do that. And I'm fine with that. And yeah, and Pete, what do you think? What have you learned that you kind of like doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, John. I think that to your point, there are things that are your strengths, and there are some things you'll find out through this, the whole Amazon selling journey that they don't really jive with you. At least, your personality or just whatever you have an interest in. For example, my wife and I, we traveled to Waco this weekend, and we went to Ollie's to find a few products. And I'll tell you, some people just really enjoy the whole RA, right? Just going out there, going to all the stores and just scanning away. And I am literally spent after about 2 hours of doing that, just, going, through almost everything I could possibly see and find. But she loves it. She could have done it all day. But that's just not my strength. And I quickly found out that's, I think my efforts can be put in someplace else, like you said, something more analytical that I can draw on.
Yeah, and there's so many way. There's not one right way to do it with him. There's so many
Right.
different paths you can take. Some people, I tried the RA just to, like, I went to an Ollie's near my
Mhm.
house. I don't live in a very good I'm in a tourist area. I'm not in a good RA area. I don't even have a Walmart near me.
Mhm.
Um, but I went to an Ollie's because Blake went, and I just thought I was gonna crush it. I was ready. I had my credit. I'm like, I'm gonna do all of my sourcing all week long today in Ollie's. I went in there for 3 hours, scanned over 200 things, and walked out with nothing.
Yeah.
Absolutely nothing. And I was like, okay,
That's insane. Yeah,
yeah,
and to your point, Ian, there's some people that can, go through the entire process of buying your product, putting it on Amazon, selling it, finding, product or profit coming back to you in that whole time span. It can take a while, and some people are just not patient enough. This day and age, people are just so, apt to just have things instantly, and their attention span is just almost non-existent. But I'm curious for those that are really doubting themselves and then just sort of struggling with motivation to keep moving forward after they've been maybe doing this for a couple of months, if that. What would be one like piece of advice or encouragement you can give to them to help them kind of keep moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's ultimately expectation. What's the goal? Now, it's really easy, especially when selling something, to sell the dream. Financial freedom, not having to work again. These sorts of buzzwords, but what does that really mean? Are
Right.
you really trying to make an extra $1,000 a month? Okay, if that's what you need, that's doable. What do you need to hit those numbers? So it becomes real. And then whatever you need to do once you've done that, it's not that much harder to actually double it. So if you have the skill, you just double your spend. Okay, now that
yeah.
you've doubled your spend, okay, maybe you have to find some more products. So it's easier to kind of break it down into those bite-sized things and make it a little more tangible.
Hmm.
Because it's really, really daunting to chase financial freedom, because that's a really big number, and you don't want to sit
And
here and
it's
be
all
like, all
different.
right, financial freedom for me is $7 million. Okay, you're starting from zero. That's way overwhelming. If you're like,
Yeah.
look, I would love to make an extra, an extra 2 grand a month would be great. But if I'm doing $500 a month, I know I'm doing okay. And now you've got this down. You have a couple things that you consistently buy. You start to expand it and turn it into $1,000 a month or 2 grand,
Hmm.
whatever that number is. But that's the idea: is start to make it a little bit more real, a little bit more bite-sized. And
Yeah.
the times a year, back to school is good, because it's sort of like a mini Christmas. You have people going to school from kindergarten to grad school. So all ages, it's not just like backpacks, it's like people need clothing, people need all kinds of stuff. So that's a good time of season. But like definitely your November into December is such a dominant season that whatever you do, you can almost always make money then. So if you can just kind of keep a steady rhythm, this is what happened to me. My first year, I was doing not great, starting. And then I was doing kind of okay. I had a couple of okay months, a couple of not so good months. By the time Q4 happened, I had my best month I'd had. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough for me to go, oh, this gets real. This is what this is about. I know it's the rest of the year isn't this easy, but I now see what it can do. And so I went through and started to improve. I started to hit the middle of the last year. I started to hit the numbers I was hitting in that previous December. So it's like, okay, great. I'm now at this point. So last December, I crushed it so hard. I actually saw what Q4 was. Like you kind of need to be at a certain level to be like, oh my God, this is really, really powerful. So now in starting January, I'm gearing everything, trying to access more capital, trying to really solidify the groups I'm working with, some of the techniques I'm using, some of the tools I'm using, so that come this Q4, I have multiple prep centers. I'm going to be doing lots of FBM. How do I handle all the logistics so that I can make considerably more money this year? And then once again next year, try and start to get to the point where that's my normal month. And as I lever up with more debt, hold it there, pay all that debt off, and then move forward. Like that's the crate. You gotta, if you're gonna play with debt, you level up, you use all the excess funds to pay it down now. Now you've removed the risk. Now if you want some profit, take the profit and go again. And so that's the idea. So if you know certain times of year are really good, like quitting in September, terrible idea. Just terrible. Just throw that out the window. If you're still doing it today, you need to rock out the rest of the year because you've already made it through the hard part of the year.
Stick with it. We started at the right time.
Yeah, stick with it, build your skill set, hit Q4 strong, see what it can do. And then next year you stack wins. Okay, now I know because I am full of doubt. I'm an overthinker, which is why I'm so good at some of this is I've thought about it from so many different angles, but there's all the doubt, the worry, the concern that comes with that. So you just get it by stacking wins. And they're little wins. Hey, this product performed the way I thought it would. That's awesome. Now it's easy to be like, I bought 10 of something and it sold so much better and now I can't rebuy it and now I feel bad. Or hey, I found something that really worked, and next time I find it, I'm going to go buy some more of it. Because sometimes I have those things where I bought 30 of it. It's going to do great. It's been 3 months. I have 28 of them now. And you're working on doing that. So sometimes you don't get enough of what you should. You get too much of what you shouldn't. And those are easy to focus on because they are technically mistakes. They're an error in your business trying to be more successful. But if it's also a data point, if it's also a piece of knowledge, and you can start to look at it as, okay, I've had a bunch of things I haven't bought enough of, but I am getting things that work. So now the skill is to go deeper on the things that work. Okay, I kept getting things going a little too deep on things that weren't working for me, and that's the more costly lesson. Okay, I'm going to be a little more conservative with my money and try and find things that I know are bigger winners, where they have that velocity, where they're selling 500 plus units a month, because you get a high offer count on some of these things. I don't care if there's 40 people on it. If it sells 8,000 units a month, my price is probably safe. And so it's just kind of going through it, trying to understand the way I think about things. So ungating right now is really difficult. Used to ungate and, my longest ungate was 10 times a couple years ago. Now I'm hearing stories. Yeah, now I'm hearing stories of people going 30 and maybe getting it. But what if I told you had to apply 100 times to make an extra $15,000 a year? You can hit a target. Oh, wow. So if I just do this 10 times a day or, 10 times a week for 10 weeks, I could end up making that much more money at the end of the year. You would do it. But because it's ambiguous, it gets harder to carry on. And you can change that perspective. I know people that sold, a couple thousand a month for a long time, got with the right people, and now they're selling 30,000 a month. So it's achievable. It's just, what's your time frame? And again, even within your time frame, okay, I'm going to give myself a year and a half. But is it a year and a half if I keep doing the exact same thing without growing? Or is it periodically, okay, am I on target to hit my goal? Because a lot of times a goal is also talked about as an aspirational, kind of a wish. I'm going to make a big goal so it drives me. I like real goals that I can hit that. And if I need to make the next goal a little harder, that's fine.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of. I look at when I looked into Amazon, I stayed away from the YouTube videos that guys were in brand new Teslas and being all flashy, and I stayed away from videos with the headline saying like, I lost $10,000 in 3 months on Amazon and it's a scam. Like, I was like, okay, don't pay attention to either of those videos. Let's watch the ones in the middle. And that's really what turned me on to Miles, because he was like, he was real. He was like, listen, it's like, it's hard work, but you can make money. I'm like, okay, I can work with that. So I started watching his videos and, you know, all the other people kind of in his group. And that's the goals that I've tried to really set for myself. Like, hey man, it is great seeing the kid that there's someone in our group that he went from like 0 to like 100K or something like that in a matter of like 4 months. I think that's fantastic. I don't like, I will say I am jealous, but a little bit of that is luck. You know, they found something somewhere, something hit, and that is fantastic for them, and it might boost them into the next level, and they may stay there, and that's fantastic, but that's not the norm. You know, I wanted to play professional football, and like it would have been really cool if I did. I wanted to play in the I wanted to fight in the UFC when I was an amateur fighter, and like that would be cool, but like that's not the norm. So, in for something like this, like, yeah, I would like to hit $1 million in gross my first year, but that's not going to really happen.
Right.
So let's
And
be realistic. What do you need to do for it to be reasonable for you to keep on doing it?
and how many things can you start completely fresh and in 3 years be making incredibly good money?
Yeah. I mean, look at the guys that are doing this. Like Miles and Garrett and all these guys, they are, and I mean this with respect, they are babies. They are babies. They have been doing this and they are really masters of their craft, I would say, in their and they are in their 20s.
Well, and I mean, there's a, like, if you want to invest, I look where old people put their money. If I want to go and like make money at a new business, I look where young people are going because they don't have a ton of skills necessarily. Not that they can't
Right.
be skilled, but if somebody in their early 20s can come along and start to crush at this business, somebody who's in their mid 40s like me can come along and crush in this business. And I learn a ton from these younger people too. It's
Oh
like,
my
hey,
God, so
share
much.
my knowledge. You know, you share with me, I'll share with you. One of the times where I almost quit, I moved. I actually moved to Oregon because they had no sales tax and I did it for the business. And I still, after moving, had a really difficult time sourcing, getting in the mindset. So I started a sourcing challenge where I did it for 7 days in a row and it invited a bunch of people from various groups. And I was in no way the most experienced person, but I held the space. I invited people in, they would come in, we'd have conversations. I got so many tips, a few things not to do, a whole bunch of things to do that I never would have considered. There was at the time, it was I was buying some Converse shoes from a store and I didn't even realize how to order from there. It was so difficult. They had all kinds of shipping fees and handling fees. It turns out if you have more than 4 items, so if you have 5 items or more, they charge a handling fee. If it's under $100, they charge a shipping fee. And this guy was like, buy 4 of these and it hits the note and you can, you know, loop it 10 times in a row. And I was like, I had no idea. Like it completely unlocked this resource for me to shop from
Yeah.
that I had no concept of. Just somebody telling me how to do it. I mean, gift cards, it took me forever to use them. I didn't get them. I tried them once. I did it
Yeah.
poorly. And
Yeah,
then one
same.
day, a guy was like, oh, we're going to buy something from Nike store. And he's like, okay, I'm going to buy gift cards. I'm like, oh, how many are you buying? He's like, I don't know, $8,000. I was like, what? What is going
Yeah.
on here? And then he starts explaining to me how it works. And since then, I've probably bought $300,000 in gift cards and saved a ton of money. And so it's
Yeah.
all of these things or something you're completely unaware of or something you've tried, it just didn't work. And somebody else can go, oh, no, it's because of this. It's like
Yeah.
trying to drive with the parking brake on. You're like, yeah, it was just really sluggish. And somebody's like, no, move this. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can go at a normal speed. Nobody can know it all. There's just
No,
too much
no.
stuff. There's too many ways to do it, but you can really start to carve out a piece. And so it's about like the process works. There are
It does.
challenges, but it works. And so if you
does.
can afford to do it, if you have enough runway, which is, you know, there have been times where I was operating with a lot of debt. So it's like, I have 6 months to make this work or I crash and burn. That is a terrible feeling, but I've had
It
to
is.
do it. But in that time, it's like the only thing you can do is gain knowledge and look
Right.
at more stuff. And you can build a business with a couple hours a day. If you could do full time, obviously you get more out of it. But like I leveraged other people. Now I'm leveraging employees. And my goal to double my business is also to reduce my time put in by half. Now, will that happen at first? No, I'd probably increase my time to make it work. But if all of the processes are that I can step away more and make more money, like there's not a lot of stuff that does that in this time frame.
I think that's fantastic. Well, we learned a lot today. I think this was a really good other side of Amazon than what Tony told us. Tony really gave us like so much good, like a wealth of knowledge in the number crunching of the game. But just as important is the mentality of this game. And that's why the three of us, me and Pete and Blake, we constantly want to have guys that come on this show that know more than us. Because after we did like our first, 3 or 4 episodes and kind of gave people the how to get ungated, download Seller Amp, this, that, and the other thing, we're kind of like, we don't know a whole lot.
But
we know what we know.
In the same way of me starting groups with sourcing, I was terrible at it. Absolutely terrible. But just by having the groups, by providing a place to meet people, here, you're providing a place to meet people, have conversations, your skill set grows exponentially. The people that listen has the opportunity to have their skill set grow. And it's a fantastic way to really get in there and just take on so much more as you go.
Yeah. Well, I think for anybody taking anything away from this today, Pete, is even though you're staring at your computer all day long with this type of business, a lot of times, networking is huge. And don't just close yourself into just watching YouTube videos, listening or watching, fantastic podcasts like ours, obviously, is try to talk to other people. Even if you don't have an online group that what we have, you can make one. Like you can make one within X and within Instagram and Discord and Reddit and the 8 bazillion other ways of doing it. So
I totally agree, John. I think, there is that skill set to have that's administrative or technical in nature that you need to have for being able to be successful in Amazon. But then again, I think I venture to say that maybe the psychological aspect of getting into this business is almost more important than all of that.
Yeah.
Just because having the will to continue to move forward, even though you are, not seeing sales that you're expecting or having trouble with ungating or having whatever trouble it is that you're having, trying to figure out, where you fit in. All of those things are all up in here. And if you can find a way to just sort of strengthen this muscle, it's going to help kind of move you forward into learning all the different skill sets you need for, being a better Amazon seller. And I think that Ian really brought it today with regard to helping us learn more about that.
Just one last note on mindset. There's a lot of people that say you need to get your mindset right to do something, and sometimes that works. But I found for me, a lot of times it's taking actions that get your mindset to follow. Yeah. And so it's just continuing to take that action because the actions compound. Sometimes when you don't believe it, doesn't mean you might not need to adjust a little or keep growing or tweak it. But as a whole, if you just keep going, half of the things, Tony's incredible. I love talking with him. I've learned a ton from him. Half the stuff he talks about as a beginner does not matter. Even if you lose a little bit of money on some interest, you lose a little bit of money on some products, as long as you're putting more in your pocket at the end of the day, you live to keep fighting and learning and growing. And so those skills alone of just doing it can help you get in the mindset. And then the mindset carries you when you have those off weeks where the skill isn't there. And then before you know it, it compounds to the point where you're really confident, you're doing the job, and you're helping other people get to where you are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think
So
that's
I'm curious, Ian, where could anybody listening to this, where could they find you? Like, what are your socials?
So I'm on X, Instagram, and YouTube. It's all Coach Ian Mac. IAN
Oh, that's really
MAC.
easy.
The man is coming back. His social medias, he's blown off the dust. He remembered his passwords. He is jumping into it, just like we are. So yeah, I just thank you again, Ian, for coming on, and kind of giving us your knowledge. And hopefully everybody listening had a good time. Again, make sure if you like this, hit the like button, the subscribe button, all that good stuff. If you have questions for us, Pete, what's our email address?
marketplacemavericks@gmail.com.
All right. Well, Ian, thank you again. And until next time, everybody, we are going to line up some new guests. And next week, Blake will be back. It was Blake's wife's birthday. Blake forgot. He didn't forget his wife's birthday. He forgot that he couldn't make it on tonight. So we're going to give him a pass. He'll be back next week. And again, thanks everybody for joining us. And until next time, we are the Marketplace Mavericks.